to talk about in this video is our front matter and rasterizing complex images, and then using our object export options to make sure that our front matter stays on their own individual page. Okay, so right now I have a JPEG at the front, so that would be a rasterized image. What I want to show you first is converting our text. Like, let's say you have complicated text in your front matter. What you can do is you can create an inline object, and then that way it will export properly into your EPUB. Now, you don't want to be using this for your chapters or any large bodies of text or anything like that. I would strictly recommend using this for your front matter. If you have, so this would be similar to converting your text to outlines, which we will actually do, but then we're going to be creating an inline object. I'm going to show you an example, and if I create outlines for this text here, I'm going to show you what it looks like in our EPUB. We're going to be doing a lot of back and forth here, converting our files to EPUBs. Okay, so you see here my half title is actually turned into this dark rectangle, right? There's no letters whatsoever in it, and this is what you will see when you convert your text to outlines and don't create an inline object. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to undo what we did. I'm going to show you how to create an inline object. So I'm going to cut that. So I press Command and X. I'm going to create a new text frame. I'm going to paste in that text. Now from here, I'm going to create outlines of this text. So I just press Command, Shift, and O. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this text into this text frame. Okay, so I'm going to actually cut it. I'm going to insert my cursor into my text frame, and I'm going to paste that in there. Okay, so now I have this outline object, outline text, placed inside of a text frame. And you'll notice that if I click on this outline text, it generates this anchored object. So an anchored object and an inline object are the same thing. They're just created differently, whereas one's inside of an object and the other one has just been anchored to it, threaded to it. Okay, so we're going to see how that looks. Okay, and you'll see now my half title actually comes in properly. Okay, so let's take a look at this object right here. So right now you'll notice that it appears to be a 3, but it should actually be a glyph. Okay, so this is what we're going to be looking at right here. And I have converted these in other places, but I'm just going to show you how I did this. So it's essentially the exact same thing that we just did. So I'm going to press Command X to cut that glyph out. I'm going to create a new text box and paste that in. So Command V. And then create outlines. So with the text box selected, I'm pressing Command, Shift, and O. So that will create this outlined text. Now I'm going to cut that and I'm going to paste it into, my text. And again, this will create an inline object and you'll have the anchored object symbol. Okay, so I've already done that for this one. And I have one in my dedication too as well, and I've already changed that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this again and we're going to take a look at it. All right, so it looks good. All right, you'll notice too in my EPUB, because I've already had to go through and do mine for a previous video. So my settings have already been applied for my object export options. So that's allowed my front matter to stay on their own page. So you notice there's my title page, and then I have my half title, and then I have my title page, my copyright page, table of contents, and my dedication. And then it goes straight into chapter 1. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that on yours. Okay, and there's a couple different options for this. So we're going to go through options for objects, images, and text. And there will be a handout with this information in it for you to utilize. Okay, so let's go through our image. So we're going to use our object export options to ensure that our front matter stays on one page. So this is for an image. And what I'm going to do is up here under preserve appearance from layout, I'm going to change that to, or I'm going to keep it rasterized content. Okay, you'll notice that these formatting settings have popped up. So I'm going to keep a JPEG. I'm going to make sure that my resolution is 300 ppi, high res quality, and my method is baseline. Okay, so I also have here clicked custom layout, and here I can change my alignment and my spacing. So on this image, I am not going to change my alignment or my spacing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this page break after the image. And what this does is it pushes any content that's after it onto another page. Okay, so remember our EPUB is essentially an HTML document, so it needs to be told what to do. Sizing, we're going to keep this relative to text flow. Okay, so this allows the image to size up and down based off of the text flow. So if your windows increased or decrease, so will your image. Okay, now this would be considered an object. Okay, what I want to do here is I'm going to right click this. I'm going to go again to my object export options, and I have not set this one up. So I'm going to rasterize content. Okay, I can also make sure this didn't come in. Like if we look at the EPUB, oh, we got rid of it there. But let's look at the EPUB and let's change our backgrounds. So on some objects, you're not going to get a, when it's rasterized, it will rasterize it with a white background. So let's take a look here. Okay, so you notice even for my glyph here, it won't actually change the color now that it's a glyph. So that's going to be dark. But let's see on this right here, this copyright page, you'll notice that my glyph has a white background, but the other one doesn't. So we're going to take a look at that. And usually what it is, if you rasterize it as a JPEG, it will have a white background. If you rasterize it as a PNG, it will have a clear background, a transparent background. Because this is text, it has a transparent background. So let's just make sure that we keep it that way. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep these settings as is for my inline object, but I'm going to go to my actual text frame here, click that, and I'm going to change my options here. I'm going to rasterize my content and make sure it's a JPEG. What I want you to look at though is make sure that there's this insert page break after image. Okay, make sure you select that. And then we're going to keep it relative to text size. I just want to go in and double check this one. Okay, for this object, I want to make sure that this is relative to text size as well. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Now I'm going back. When we increase our type, I want to make sure that this increases as well. So done. Okay. Now for this one, we have two things going on as well. We have our text frame and then we have an inline object. So we're going to do those separately. So I'm going to right click, object export options. Again, because it's for text, I'm going to, I could even keep this the default. I could keep it default so it doesn't actually change or rasterize anything. So again, this is just for text. And I could make sure that I have a page break after my image and that it is going to be resized relative to text size. Okay, and go okay. But now I have this object in here as well that I want to make sure. So I can rasterize content. I change it to a PNG. Remember, I have a transparent background. I'm not going to insert a page break or anything like that because if I did, that would mean it would push everything after it onto another page. And we're going to resize to text size. Okay, let's take a look at this object because this was the object that, if you'll remember in the EPUB, it had a white background. Okay, and you'll notice that it was set up with a JPEG. So let's make sure that we change that to a PNG. So I'm going to rasterize my content, I'm going to change it to a PNG. I'm going to make sure it's size relative to text size. And done. And for our text frame here, we're going to go in. And again, I can keep this default. I also want you to note that in this text frame, my text has been pushed down to the last half of the page. So how you can do that, because if we don't set this setting, it will end up at the top of the page. So just depending on how you want your text to look, you can change these settings. Now I could also align it left, center, or right. I'm going to leave it right now. It's aligned left, and I have increased the space from the top of the margin or top of the page 260 pixels. Okay, so if you're working with inches, you can just go up to your ruler and change it to pixels so you know approximately where it will be. It's not going to be perfect when it comes into the EPUB, but it will be pushed down. Okay, I also want to make sure that I have a page break after my image because my page is going to stop and it's going to break after this page relative to text size, and done. Okay, and my table of contents, I can go in and do the same thing. I can leave it at default, and I can make sure that I have a page break after my image, and I can say relative to text size, and done. Okay, now I do have another piece of front matter in a separate file. So what I've done is I've pushed this down as well. I've rasterized my content and I've made it size relative to text size. Let's look at this glyph. Okay, Remember, we're going to change that to a PNG relative to text size, and done. Okay, let's test this out. Okay, so you can see the difference in that sizing already. I'm going to change my background again to the lighter version. Okay, so you notice that my glyphs are actual glyphs and not boxes. Okay, my contents, everything appears on its own page. Okay, so that's how you handle your front matter. And again, the settings for the EPUB, the settings for the object export options will be in the week 2 tutorial that is posted on Blackboard.